The thing we know about Queen Cleopatra is that she was buried in a temple of Isis. So it could be a perfect place for Cleopatra's lost tomb.
The search for Cleopatra's tomb just took a turn into the underworld. Deep beneath an ancient temple, a mile-long tunnel has been uncovered, and it points to a queen who is hiding a massive secret.
Cleopatra is one of the most powerful women ever to come out of the ancient Mediterranean world.
Everyone is obsessed with her beauty, but her genetic code reveals she was fighting a losing battle against her own genes. Recent DNA studies on her closest relatives show a pattern of physical decay and terrifying deformities. This is not the queen you saw in the movies. This is the story of a woman who used ancient chemistry to mask a body that was failing her. Searching for a ghost. For 2,000 years, the sands of Egypt have held on to one specific secret. This is a secret that has baffled historians and treasure hunters for centuries. We are talking about the final resting place of the last pharaoh, Queen Cleopatra. Usually, most experts will tell you she is gone. They say she is buried under the modern streets of Alexandria, lost forever to earthquakes and rising tides. But for the last 20 years, one woman dared to say they were all wrong. That woman is Kathleen Martinez. She is not your typical academic in a tweed jacket. She is a criminal lawyer turned archaeologist from the Dominican Republic, and she did not approach this like a history lesson. She approached it like a cold case investigation. She treated Cleopatra's disappearance like a crime scene that needed to be deciphered. While everyone was looking left, Martinez looked right. Her profile of the suspect led her 30 miles west of Alexandria to a forgotten crumbling temple called Taposiris Magna. And in the year 2022, the ground beneath her feet finally revealed a massive anomaly. Martinez and her team smashed through the limestone and found something that simply should not exist. They found a tunnel. But not just any tunnel, this thing is a shocking replica of a legendary design. It is carved through solid bedrock stretching over 4,300 feet. That is nearly a mile long. It is 6 feet high, submerged in mud and water, and it heads straight out toward the Mediterranean Sea. Architects are calling it a geometric miracle. It is an engineering masterpiece that matches the legendary ancient Greek tunnel of Eupalianos. But here is the million-dollar question. Why would anyone go to this extreme? Why tunnel 40 feet underground into unstable, dangerous rock? You do not build a mile-long aqueduct for a minor site. This implies massive importance. The discovery of a sunken port off the coast suggests this was not just a remote temple. It was a hub, and Martinez believes this tunnel leads to the end of the line. Martinez's theory is terrifyingly simple. Cleopatra was not just hiding from death. She was hiding from Rome. She was hiding from the humiliation of being paraded in chains. She wanted to be buried with her lover, Mark Antony. She wanted to be immortalized as the living embodiment of the goddess Isis. And to do that, she needed a tomb that could never ever be defiled. She buried herself where she thought no one would ever look. Kathleen Martinez may have found the front door to that sanctuary. And while we have not found the queen yet, the evidence we have uncovered points to a dark truth. What they found inside the mouths of the dead changed everything. Inside the complex, the team made another discovery that sent shivers down their spines. Buried in 16 rock-cut tombs were mummies. But these were not ordinary burials. When the archaeologists peered into the crumbling faces of the dead, they saw something glittering in the darkness. They saw gold. Inside their mouths, where their tongues should have been, were amulets made of gold foil. The ancient Egyptians believed that to survive the afterlife, you had to speak to Osiris, the lord of the underworld. You had to plead your case. A golden tongue gives the power to speak to a god. It grants what is called golden eloquence. But here's the catch. Why are they here? Why at this specific temple? Martinez believes these were not just random aristocrats. They were Cleopatra's people, her inner circle, her courtiers. They were buried here, equipped with the magic to speak to Osiris, perhaps to announce the arrival of their queen. Think about what that means. We are not just digging through a graveyard. We are standing in a royal reception hall. We are in her necropolis. And if the courtiers are here waiting for their queen, then the door is about to open. Despite Martinez's discovery, she is inches away from the queen's DNA. But while we wait for her to break the final seal, we already have a key to Cleopatra's genetic code. Or at least we thought we did. To see Cleopatra's face, we do not need to wait for the tunnel. We just need to look at the bones of the sister she eliminated. The skeleton in the closet was actually a royal princess. The secret in the octagon tomb. To understand the dead found at Taposiris Magna, we first have to understand the ruthlessness of the woman they served. History remembers Cleopatra as the seductress, but her family tree was more like a shark tank. And her biggest threat was not a Roman general, it was her own little sister, Arsinoe IV. This was a relationship defined by pure toxic ambition. When Cleopatra was exiled, it was Arsinoe who took the throne. When Julius Caesar arrived in Egypt, it was Arsinoe who led the army against him. She was a warrior princess who actually managed to trap Caesar in the palace. But history is written by the victors. Arsinoe was eventually captured, dragged to Rome, and forced to march in chains. The Roman crowds actually wept for her. They saw a teenage girl in shackles. That sympathy saved her life, and she was exiled to the Temple of Artemis in Ephesus in modern-day Turkey. She thought she was safe. She thought the holy ground would protect her. Yeah, about that, she was wrong. In 41 BCE, Cleopatra persuaded Mark Antony to do the unthinkable. He sent assassins to the temple steps. They dragged Arsinoe out and ended her life. It was a scandal that rocked the ancient world, but for us, 2,000 years later, it provided a location. We knew exactly where the crime occurred. For centuries, we thought Arsinoe was lost to history, until the 1900s when archaeologists in Ephesus found a unique tomb known as the Octagon. Inside was a skeleton. The bones belonged to a young person. If their theory was correct, this might just be the remains of Arsinoe IV. The timeline fits. The location fits. The age fits. If this was Arsinoe, we had Cleopatra's genetic code. We could finally answer the questions about her ethnicity, her health, and her lineage. We had the map to the queen's biology, but science has a way of ruining a good story. Initial DNA tests failed due to contamination. The bones had been handled too many times, but recently in a 2025 study, advanced analysis finally gave us an answer. The results were not just shocking, they were biologically impossible. The mirror cracked when technology took a second look at the bones. For years, the skeleton in Ephesus was our only mirror to Cleopatra's face. Scholars looked at those bones and saw a queen's sister. They saw African heritage. They saw the answer to a centuries-old riddle. But recently, modern technology took a second look and the mirror cracked. The breakthrough happened in 2022. A team from the University of Vienna, led by anthropologist Gerhard Weber, finally located the long-lost skull in the university archives. It had been sitting there unnoticed for decades. This was the game changer. They did not just look at it, they saw through it. Using micro-CT scans, they created a high-resolution digital map of the bone structure, and they drilled into the petrous temporal bone. This is the densest part of the skull, a biological safe that preserves DNA even when the rest of the skeleton has turned to dust. In January 2025, the results were published in scientific reports, and they revealed a medical horror story. The skeleton is not Arsinoe, it is not a 20-year-old woman, it is not an African princess. The DNA proved the presence of a Y chromosome. The sister of Cleopatra is a boy, specifically an adolescent boy between 11 and 14 years old. And get this, he was not just young, he was suffering. The scans revealed severe developmental disorders. His jaw was stunted, his skull was asymmetrical and twisted. The analysis suggests he suffered from something like Treacher-Collins syndrome or severe rickets. This was not a healthy royal rival. This was a child with a face that had been misshapen by genetic tragedy. Even more shocking was that his DNA tells us he was not from Egypt. His genetic markers trace back to Italy or Sardinia. This opens up a darker, more confusing mystery. We thought we were looking at the victim of a political assassination. Instead, we are looking at a tragedy of a different kind. The octagon turned out to be a heron, a tomb built for a hero, a semi-divine figure. Why was a deformed, sickly Italian boy buried in one of the most prestigious tombs in the ancient world? Was he a sacrifice? Or was he a hidden royal child of Roman and Ptolemaic blood whose existence was so shameful or so dangerous that he had to be buried with honors but far away from home? Whatever the answer is, it turns out that the scientific proof of Cleopatra's African lineage in this specific tomb was an illusion caused by bad science and wishful thinking. So where does that leave us? We are back to the historical record, and it tells a story of a family tree that went in circles. The Ptolemaic loop. The boy in Ephesus might have been a secret, but in Alexandria, the genetic nightmare was not a secret. It was a royal policy characterized by what is called pedigree collapse. In a normal family tree, the branches expand upward. You have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents. The further back you go, the more ancestors you have. It is a funnel opening up to the world. But Cleopatra's family tree did not expand. It collapsed in on itself. The Ptolemies were a Greek dynasty ruling Egypt. They wanted to keep their power absolute and their bloodline pure. So they adopted the ancient pharaonic custom of close kin marriage. They did not just marry cousins, they married siblings. Historians believe Cleopatra's own parents, Ptolemy XII and Cleopatra V, were likely full siblings. Even her grandparents may have most likely been uncle and niece or even brother and sister. This family was obviously a closed loop. Geneticists estimate that Cleopatra was born with a coefficient of inbreeding estimated at over 45%. To put that in perspective, the child of 2 first cousins has about a 6% coefficient. In many royal dynasties like the Habsburgs of Spain, this level of inbreeding led to severe deformities and madness. For example, consider Charles II of Spain. Historians call him the Bewitched. He was the end of the Habsburg line, a dynasty that practiced the same kind of intermarriage as the Ptolemies. Charles was a medical tragedy. He could not speak until he was 4. He could not walk until he was 8. His jaw was so deformed that his top and bottom teeth could not touch. He literally could not chew his food. He swallowed everything whole. When he died at age 38, the autopsy report stated that his body did not contain a single drop of blood, his head was full of water, and his heart was the size of a peppercorn. His coefficient of inbreeding was around 25%. Cleopatra was nearly double that. So why does this happen? The science comes down to something called homozygosity. Normally, your DNA is a conversation between your mother and father. One covers the flaws of the other. If your mother passes down a recessive gene for a weakness or a disease, your father usually passes down a dominant gene for strength to cancel it out. It is a biological safety net. But in Cleopatra's case, there was no conversation. The same genes repeating the same errors over and over. Because her parents were siblings, they carried the exact same genetic flaws. There was no healthy gene to step in and save her. Biologically, she should have been a disaster. Inbreeding like this usually results in the kind of deformities we saw in that boy in Ephesus. It leads to physical weakness, cognitive issues, and short lifespans. But here is the terrifying paradox. History tells us Cleopatra was not deformed. She was brilliant. She spoke 9 languages. She charmed the most powerful men in Rome. So how is that possible? If they open the tomb tomorrow and find out Cleopatra looked like a monster, would you burn the history books, or does that make her even more impressive? Let me know your theory below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more mysteries unearthed.